you know what hits so uniquely? It's when they put a banana leaf on a plate.
Audio Jungle.
Hey everyone.
Hey everyone. Welcome back to Experts About Nothing.
Welcome.
If you guys haven't already followed our podcast account at Experts About Nothing on Instagram and you're loving the show, we would love to have you over there because we post some embarrassing stuff and mostly...
Honestly, only embarrassing
I
things
embarrass
so far.
Priya all the time. So definitely follow that. But if you guys also have any feedback or ideas for what you guys want us to talk about in future episodes, please shoot us a DM. Thanks so much for the support so far.
All right. So this past weekend was an eventful one for both of us in extremely different ways.
Yep.
Diksha, what did you do?
Not me being reprimanded. I went on a helicopter ride with P, and it was so fun. So actually this helicopter ride was supposed to be P's birthday present, P's 25th birthday present from last July, okay? And we moved this helicopter ride, I want to say 3 times for one reason or another. One time it was canceled because of weather conditions. And the last time was supposed to be end of Jan, but then... What happened end of Jan?
P had an allergic reaction.
Oh, how could I possibly forget that? He had the worst allergic reaction to ramen, and then we had to emergency cancel this entire operation. We were having a great day, and anyway, see my TikTok for that. But yeah, we finally did it, and it was so fun. We did a doors off one, so it was definitely scary. I was sweating the whole time because I think the scariest part is when you turn because you're flying over water, specifically around Statue of Liberty, because then you're like curving around. I was like, oh my God.
I actually would have started crying.
I'm more scared of water than I am of heights. Like, I'm scared of deep bodies of water.
But if you fall into the water, at least it cushions the blow.
No, I am like more terrified of falling into the depth of the ocean than I am of being up in the sky or whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh.
But totally worth it. And you go over Central Park too. So I thought that was the most surreal part because you're like flying over places you walk around, and it's just so fun. But yeah, it was a great experience. Would recommend, and it's cool to do it in big cities. Or like abroad. I know a lot of people do it in Hawaii, but super fun. Highly rec. What did you do this weekend?
I was home because I will never be on a helicopter. That is not my vibe. She's a risk-averse queen. But yeah, I was shocked that Diksha went on a helicopter. Honestly,
but I told you
I feel like seeing the photos, like I was like, wow.
I know, it's like the foot hang photo.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I was doing like literally quite opposite, the most opposite thing you can do.
Very close to the ground.
The closest to the ground. I was home because this past weekend was Ugadi, which is New Year for different states in India. And I'm from Karnataka, so that's New Year for us. So yeah, I went home. It was great. I ate a lot of food, so much rice. Which was great.
The food of our people.
The food of our people and the most comforting food, honestly. And then I went to the temple, which was packed to the brim. Okay, like temple on Ugadi is a different vibe.
Yeah.
Like it was wilded in there, but also really good. And I hadn't gone to that specific temple in a long time. And yeah, it was actually a very reflective weekend. I feel like anytime there's a big Indian holiday, I love going home for it because it actually makes me feel so much more connected to the culture, to the religion, to my parents. But it's just funny because each time one of these festivals or, you know, holidays go by and I'm at home, I feel like I learn so much about the holiday, and then it makes me realize how little I know about the holiday or like just about the culture in general. Of course, we've heard these staple holidays, Diwali,
Navratri,
all of these things, and like you kind of think of it more culturally, I would say, or like, oh, I'm gonna wear this outfit and I'm gonna
go to Garba.
Yeah, go to these events, do these rituals or whatever you do with your family, and there's specific things that each family does that, you know, is unique to them. But historically, like, I don't actually fully understand the context around each of these 100%. Festivals.
Definitely me neither. And I think majority of people our age, it's actually standard. Like, our knowledge is kind of all very baseline.
It's very limited. It's very surface level. And I feel like it's always been this gap that I've been trying to, or at least more in my adult years, I've been trying to be more active about, but it's such a large gap that it's hard to fill.
And it's almost stressful when you think about how much you don't know.
Yeah. And it's daunting. Like, you almost feel like, oh, I'm already kind of cruising by. Like, there's a lot of effort I need to put in to kind of, like, fill this void. But something we were talking about earlier this week was how, you know, like, we have these situations like Ugadi or Diwali where we feel semi-connected to our culture, we'll do these things with our family, and then there's the American holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you also go home and you kind of like, usually, at least on my end, like, I'm the one kind of driving the troops.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm like, we're putting up a damn tree, even though, like, we're not Christian, or like, I don't know, like, we don't go to church on that day, but like, I'm like, I want the experience, I want the holiday, and it's always just living in that limbo of kind of wanting to fully embrace one side of ourselves, but kind of being 50-50 on both sides.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, we kind of float through life always being like, oh, I'm Indian, and like owning that part of ourselves. If you see another Indian, you're like, oh, they're Indian. Mm-hmm. And like, you have that unspoken shared experience, you know? And that's a fact that we've known about ourselves forever. But then as you grow up, I almost feel like I've gotten even more distant from it because our parents are not constantly around us, making us go to... I went to Chinmay Mission as a kid, and honestly, the influence of that was mainly my childhood best friend, and her family was really involved in it, and so I also went. And I learned a lot from there. Like, I learned the only few mantras I know from going to Chinmay Mission. And so that was just like Saturday school, right? For Hindu children.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I felt like a lot of my adulthood, I've actually felt a little bit more separated, even though we have so many more resources to learn ourselves and to get closer to the culture. But I think the farther I am from my parents, the farther I am from my culture almost, right?
Yeah. And funnily enough, like, I feel like I actually have more Indian kids around me now at this point in my life.
Yeah.
I've come across so many through like college, even through working life, like all these different places. And I think it's weird because so many of them have like a similar philosophy to their Indian culture as maybe we do. Yeah. And so I'm like, it's almost just normalizing that, oh, we don't need to be that in touch with it. Everyone's kind of at the same baseline, and that's it. So it's crazy to think that the only thing that was really tethering us to it closely in our childhood was our parents.
I know, and I think it scares me because in the future we're only going to be more and more independent from our parents, and you know, like, unfortunately they're not going to be around forever. That is kind of a stressor because it's like, wow, I don't know nearly even like a fourth of like what they know right now. Yeah. And to have to like learn all that and carry on the culture, the traditions, is going to be so difficult because even things like food, I still don't know how to make even 3 of like my mom's dishes without even calling her on FaceTime and like getting step-by-step instructions on how to do it. And like, of course we have the recipes online, we have the YouTube videos, we have obviously like a whole country that is still doing what they do best, you know? But the fact that the things that we grew up with are not going to be the things that our kids have is so
those
scary.
Comforts are really scary. One thing I was really thinking about is I have never been to India alone or without my parents. And that to me is so crazy and again daunting for me to think about, like, in the future to go back to India. Do I always need to go with my parents? And what am I going to do there if I go by myself? Like, I don't know how to navigate. I don't even know how to fluently speak my language well.
Do you mean like going home to your family in India, or do you mean like going home and to see India?
Going home to my family in India, I would say, but like also so many of my generation of cousins have moved out of our hometown in India. So like, one, there's not that much family from my generation left there. And so that is one thing that's sad because I'm like, you know, down the line, if I have kids and I want to take them back, like, am I going to take them back there? And like, who's going to be there to help me, like, where am I gonna stay, and like how am I gonna communicate and get around. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I don't even know the geography of the city that I've visited so many times, because I literally just like go to our family's home
and go then, where you're taken, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like chauffeured to different places. Like, I mean, I've walked down the street by myself, but that's probably it. Like, literally, that's it in terms of my independent experiences there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. Like, if I ever wanted to even just like visit for myself, by myself, like, it feels like I'm not capable of doing that. I probably am if I go. Like, I've traveled to a bunch of other places in the world by myself.
I'm sure we would be. I think the experience would be completely different for our kids than it was for us, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think part of the magic of India is going home to like all these relatives and extended family that you don't see, and then you're like, wow, like you learn part of your culture from your grandparents, where they live, the neighborhoods, homes that are left, all of that stays with you. It's the scariest thing to me to think about my grandparents leaving their homes. You know what I mean? Like, and then I'm like, whoa, where would I go? Those are like the landmarks, you know?
And it's things that we kind of take for granted. I don't know, like, until recently I was like, oh, like, whenever I go to India, I'll just like go with my parents and like have the same experience that I've always had, you know, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, am I gonna keep having that experience? Like, you don't know. And that is another part that's really crazy, because half of our identity is tethered to this country and this culture and this history. And the craziest part about being like a first generation immigrant kid in America is that you are that first generation that's no longer there. Like, you are the person who is different in your lineage on how you're going to carry on your family.
Yeah. So it's like a responsibility.
It's a responsibility, and it's also a loss. Like, it's like your generation is the one who experiences the largest loss of
degradation
culture.
Of knowledge. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's something that I haven't really like thought about, and the more I think about it, I'm like, it makes you want to make so much more of like an effort to retain it. And I don't think I ever prioritized that in my past.
Yeah. Something that I always think about is just the culture versus religion aspect of being Indian, because religiously, I actually just don't know much about Hinduism, even though I do consider myself a practicing, in quote unquote, Hindu. I don't know much about the prayers I'm saying or the different gods and goddesses. Like, I don't know about much of their stories, and I don't know that. And I truly wish I did know a lot more of the background. And typically what I end up doing is every Diwali, every Dasra, I read up on what it is, and I read a few articles, and then next year I like reading it again, because like I haven't retained it.
Yeah.
And I feel like with culture, we are so much more tied to our culture and the customs and beliefs that we have as like growing up in an Indian family, and the traditions that come with that just being Indian. The cultural traditions, I feel like we're so closer to than we are Hindu. At least I am. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like the spiritual connection, and like I love going to temples, and I love sitting there and just feeling the energy, because I do feel like it's a very strong energy. But I wish I knew more about all of that. And
it's complex, right? Like, I think it's hard to dive into it as an adult, because there's so much to dive into. And I think in general, because it's such a complex religion, a lot of us were taught, say these, prayers and just go to the temple and do the rounds, and people don't dive in usually to like the actual spiritual context of the religion.
It's almost done really fast. We have our priests to kind of do the translation for us. In the end, I'm like, we just did this puja, but I don't know what I did.
What are the steps?
What did I say? Yeah, I definitely want to be more conscious about that moving forward. Like, when I am saying a prayer, like, what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially the ones that we say frequently. Obviously, we're not going to be able to remember everything. I think that's a lot. That's a large undertaking, right? But I think I would be really satisfied even if I just knew the things I knew confidently. Like,
know the things that speak to you more concretely, and like know the context behind them. For me, I feel like I am pretty spiritual, but I don't know the history that well, and I don't know like I love going to temples too, and especially temples in India. I love that. It's like a completely different level and experience, I think, than like going to temples here, obviously.
Yeah.
And there is such a dense amount of like history with each of those temples. And not even like the temples, but like the towns. And, you know, India is such a vast place. And I think it's crazy now seeing parts of India on like the Food Network shows or like travel shows. And you're like, what? Like when there's so many times when I'm watching things like that, I'm like, I don't even know what they're showing me. Like, and I'm Indian. I'm Indian.
Yeah.
And yeah, so things like that, it's always just like, whenever I learn something about India from Western media, I'm always like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, why am I learning about this through this avenue?
I think something that I've like been thinking about recently, just because I have a trip to India around the corner, is whenever I go to India, I go to Hyderabad, because that's where I was born, that's where my family is, that's where they have always been, and so I haven't seen another part of India even. And I, of course, have gone on like a few trips here and there, temple trips, of course.
I love temple trips.
I mean, they're amazing.
Tours.
They're so fun.
So
Getting
fun.
on
The best
train.
trip.
It's like a whole experience.
It's a whole vibe, yeah.
But yeah, I still feel like I would love to go to India and exclusively do everything but Hyderabad.
Yeah.
And just like, I mean, I haven't even seen the Taj Mahal, you know what I mean? There's so much culture spread across India that I don't even know about, or like, you know, like I've never had the pleasure of getting to know. So that's definitely something I want to prioritize in the future as well. But apart from actively having to make the effort to gain all this information back, and also just picking the parts that speak to us, I'm glad you said that, because I think that's the only way I could move forward at a comfortable pace. I don't think I can absorb every part of my culture.
There's no way.
I can't.
At this point, I feel like, also just in general, India is such a complicated place.
Yeah.
And my culture is completely different than your culture. Like, we're from different states, you know? And, like, we speak different languages. And we have completely different traditions.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many divisions within the society. Like, in a complex way and also a beautiful way. That's why it's such a rich place.
Yeah.
But there's no way. Like, I feel like state to state, you have completely different experience.
I think the fact of the matter is we aren't 100% Indian. We are American also. And I think it is about striking the balance between being American and Indian. We are Indian American at the end of the day. So I think that's just also kind of just a new culture, you know?
Yeah. Like, I think accepting that is actually, like, a huge part in the process.
Yeah.
Because that's what we were saying. Like, we never feel Indian enough. We don't feel American enough.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we? We can't fit into either bucket, like, cleanly, right? And you just kind of, like, need to step back and be like, I'm neither of those things. I am a new thing, and I need to accept that and take what I resonate with and, like, what's beautiful in both cultures. And when you look at it like that, it actually, like... Because I know, like, we've all experienced feeling like we don't fit in America all the time, right? Like, when you're a kid, you feel like you stick out. When, even as an adult,
you feel,
exactly. Like, there's multiple experiences, like, at work or, like, different things where I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, I don't have the same traditions as a lot of these people, or, like, the majorities, right? Even though we live in a country that has a lot of different diversities, the stuff that's usually highlighted or what's more prevalent to you, sometimes you just feel like you can't click with. But, yeah, it's like a shift in your mind to just be like, this is actually maybe a really beautiful thing, and it can be a beautiful thing if I make the most out of it.
And make an effort, right? Like, I think it's really easy to lose a lot of your Indian part of you if you don't have some aspect that you're tied to, you know? And I think it's obviously different for everyone. Sometimes it's just the familial connections, you know? And, like, people just being really close with their family, and their parents do some things, so then they do those things, and they grow to love those things. And sometimes that's where it ends. But then other people, like, have made it a point to, like, go to India all the time, and they go every year, every 2 years, and, like, that's how they stay close to their relatives, to their history, to their culture. I think for everyone it's like a different spectrum. Something that I find that I experience in America is when you're hanging out with Indian people, sometimes there's just the comments that are like, ha ha ha, you don't eat spicy food? Are you even Indian? Or like, ha ha ha.
The judgment.
Yeah, like, why do you say it like that? It's supposed to be said like this. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like those types of comments are just so unnecessary, mainly because every single person has grown up with a different level of exposure. You know? And I think that level of exposure is such a personal, unique experience. And I feel like the effort to know or the effort to try should be much more valued than it is, because I feel like sometimes we have a little bit of shame on not being Indian enough, and then there's the other side where you have a little bit of shame on not being American enough.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a shame in even being Indian in America.
Yeah.
There's a shame, we've all been through the phase of wanting to, like, reject, you know, or, like, reject parts of our identity and be like, oh, I'm, like, gonna be super American. And so, yeah, if someone's making an active effort in any part of their Indian identity to just try to embrace it in whatever way, that takes a lot of energy in itself.
Yes.
To just be like, I'm gonna try.
100%. And I like, something that I literally do, like, whenever I say, like, when I'm so self-conscious about speaking in Telugu.
Oh, yeah. Or, like, even the teasing. Like, I know that's what has inhibited me so much to, like, speaking our language. Our families do that,
you know?
And I know they do it out of, like, love. Like, my parents are always like, oh, it's so cute that you said it like that. And I'm like, oh, my God, I want to pass out. Or they're like, ha, 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 ha. Look,
it's so funny. Say it again. Say it
again. The way that you pronounce it is hilarious. And I'm like, oh, my God.
I'm never saying this again in my lifetime.
I can never speak again. Yeah. I can't. I shan't. So all of those things are so hard to come by that, like, at least I know in our parents' generation, or when you interact with people who are from India or something, like, I can't expect them to give us the same grace, but as Indian Americans who have had this shared experience, like, I think letting go of the judgment and letting people connect with their culture whatever way they feel comfortable is so, like key.
A mispronounced word here or there, like a missaid thing here or there is just, like, whatever, you know? It's not the end of the world, and sometimes the correction honestly does more harm than good, because it just makes people feel uncomfortable, and then also it's a vulnerable thing to, like, try to be connected to your culture and then, like, have it being corrected,
like, shot down in a way, or you might perceive it as being like, oh,
it makes you less inclined to continue saying that word or doing that thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, you know? I completely get that.
That's, I don't think I definitely feel
any one part of like Indian culture makes you Indian, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because you eat the type of food, or like
you're
just because
you
are fluent in your language, like, doesn't make you more or less, you know, of anything than anyone else.
Yeah. And I always think about, like, why I have a lot of friends that are Indian. If I reflect, I genuinely think it's just because when you go through childhood and you see people that look like you, that have parents that look like you, that have customs similar to yours, that immediately drew me to those types of people. And I think it's just that shared experience of being a first generation Indian American that's just like, wow, it's so nice not to have to explain so much of our culture, and, like, why our parents will allow some things and then will not allow other things, or, like, why we can't hang out until, like, why we can't sleep over every single day, or, like, hang out every, I don't know, like, hang out every Friday,
or, like, why you're going home for a festival, like, whatever, like, all the little things are, I completely get that. I feel like in high school and even middle school, like, I think I had, like, 2 groups, like, but in school I didn't have that many Indian friends, because there honestly weren't that many Indians that went to my school. And then college was, like, the first time that I had, like, a full, like, Indian friend group, and ended up being my closest friend group. And it was exactly that. It's like, you can just remove part of, like, I don't know, there's just a level of comfort that I think every culture probably feels this. Like, there's a level of comfort with the people who have a shared experience as you. And you don't need to, like, explain yourself or put on a facade or, like, do anything to just be comfortable and, like, bond with them. It leads to really fruitful relationships. And I'm, again, like, that's another part of that melding of cultures that's really beautiful. Like, we can all really be able to connect with each other easily and, like, form really amazing friendships off of a shared experience and learn from each other, right? Like, we're all from different parts of India, and, like, I've learned so much about India and Indian culture through my friendships.
Oh, genuinely.
With my friends from college, or like other Indian friends who are from different places. That's amazing, you know? And even living in India, you might not get that experience because you're probably living in like one state and interacting with people who have like an exactly like identical environment than you.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really cool. And I know like one of the things that we've always talked about as a friend group is doing a trip to India and like going to each of our
respective homes, home states.
Like, thoughts like that make me so excited and also, like, hopeful.
Yeah.
When I have those fears of, like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to go to India? Yeah, like, I'm like, we'll figure it out. And, like, we're not in this alone. Like, it's not just me.
I was just going to say that.
It's a whole generation of people. And I think when we all put that effort in together, it will become a good bond.
And I also think it's a lot of becoming an adult and just owning the things, like you said, that are meaningful to you and wanting to pass those traditions, those aspects of culture, those aspects of religion even down to your kids. If that matters a lot to you, I feel like naturally you will make the effort to grow in that space and grow your knowledge in that space to be able to do the rituals, the customs, whatever you do want to do, you will be able to do them.
Yeah, and we also have the opportunity, since we're being raised in America with Western culture and influence, to not carry on the bad parts about our culture. Like, and no culture on the planet is 100% pure. And there are parts of Indian culture or, you know, like our religion that might be bigoted or things that we don't align with any longer. And, like, we don't have to carry that on because we've been able to see this different perspective and assimilate to that. Same with American culture. There's a lot of things in American culture that I don't want to carry on, and I can bring aspects of Indian culture to help fill those buckets, you know? I'm excited to continue to learn more about both cultures and mold what I want to carry forward, especially when I'm thinking about like my kids. What I want influenced on them. It's honestly just like a bigger pot to choose from. Yeah,
I completely agree. So I guess we are Indian enough.
Maybe. I don't know.
Should we do our favorite Indian dessert? I'm thinking about dessert.
My god, Indian dessert is like the one area.
I have mine locked and loaded. It could be an Indian brand.
Oh my gosh. Brand?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll start because mine's probably not going to be as hype as yours. I don't love Indian desserts, which I know is a controversial opinion, but I love Indian food. Don't get me wrong. My favorite cuisine, literally the best food in the world to me. I can eat it every single day for all my meals, okay? But desserts in India, for some reason, don't hit for me because I feel like they are too sweet. But that being said, I am a rasmalai queen.
Oh, you're a rasmalai queen?
I'm a rasmalai queen. And, like, I'll eat a rasmalai.
No, it's so good. I didn't know it was cheese for the longest time.
I know, kind of ruined. Like, once I found that, I was like, ew. But I don't know why. Like, that just kind of grossed me out. But I'm still going to eat it because it's so good.
No, it's tasty. And I feel like it's not as sweet as other desserts.
I used to be a rasgulas queen.
Oh, really?
And then I was like, this shit is so sweet. Like, it's just soaked in sugar syrup. It's literally like sugar.
That's why I can't eat jalebis, because
oh my god,
they are sugar in form.
I cannot eat jalebis. I literally eat a bite and then I'm like nauseous for 2 days.
For 2 days, yeah. I'm a similar vibe, and my mom, my brother, they love them, and I simply
get it. Like in theory, like a fried sugar. It's like a donut.
It's like a donut,
but it's a donut on a caliber of its own. Like, it's literally like the craziest donut.
My favorite dessert is a sweet chapati. It's so good.
Wait,
those are my
babatlu?
Yeah, that's what I've always grown up calling them sweet chapati, and I know people call them different things because
we eat those too. Wait, which filling do you like? Well,
jaggery. The ones with jaggery, those slap.
That's the one with like dal, right?
Yeah. What about you?
I like the coconut. I'm a coconut girl. Oh, you like
the syrup type filling?
I don't know. There's one that's coconut, but it
like
might be
a whiter filling.
Yes. I like that one more, but I will agree. That's a good, like...
They are so good. Drenched in nay.
Nay, a.k.a. ghee, a.k.a. tuppa. That's what they call it in Canada.
Stop.
So good. That one always reminds me of like all the South Indian like festivals because it's so staple.
It's a traditional.
Wait, can we do our favorite savory foods? That's more fun for me.
A savory food in general, or you're talking about snack?
I don't fucks with snacks like that.
Shut up.
Okay, savory breakfast food. Savory breakfast.
Oh,
Indian
you know my
food.
answer. Vada all the way. Medu vada all the fucking way. Yes.
Okay, mine is. Oh my god, wait, this is hard. I said it and then now I'm stressed because I love Indian breakfast foods. Karabat.
What is that?
It's like upma, but it's the spicier version of upma.
Oh, what's in it? What's
might
the base?
Be rava.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is a type of upma.
It's a type of upma.
Oh, okay.
But it's so good. Oh my gosh.
Can you explain this further? Like, what makes it different than upma?
They put like more like sambar style spices in there. Oh. So it's like actually like a heartier like upma. And it's like spicier. It's red. Mm-hmm. Or like orangish red.
Okay. It's giving sambar upma.
Sambar upma vibes. But it's so good. But also I gotta hit it with the dosa because
classic.
No disrespect. No disrespect to dosa. What?
Okay. On that note, a little bit of a shorter episode, but hope you guys had fun.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna cut that.
I know. I don't know.